Hi, I'm Kenneth Wajda. I'm a professional photographer here in Colorado. Welcome to another one of my weekly photography talks. So today I'm going to tell you a story. So there was a documentary on a photographer named Henri Dauman, who was a light photographer. Photographed all the celebrities back in the 50s and 60s. And that documentary was coming to the Boulder Film Festival, which was very exciting because he was going to be there. And I was supposed to be in Washington, D.C., photographing a big conference I photograph every spring, and I was going to miss it. But the virus came, the conferences got canceled, and I could go get a ticket and go see Henri Dauman. Dauman. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it exactly right, but I think he might be French. So, I get to go to the film festival. I get to see this film. I get to meet him. Except I get to the screening and I know folks who work it. And I met a friend. And I said, "Hey, is he in the back? Is he in the green room? Where is he?" And he goes, "I don't know. Let's take a walk around and look." So we walked into the green room. He wasn't there. We're looking around. Next thing you know, we heard he wasn't there. He didn't come to the screening. He had some health issues that prevented him from being there. But his granddaughter was there. And I had brought a Rolleiflex because he often shot with a Rolleiflex, and there are photographs of him online with his Rolleiflex. I'll put a link to his work in the show notes. And I thought, I'm going to photograph him with my Rolleiflex, and he'll recognize that for having been a Rolleiflex shooter. And I get to say hello, and I get to meet him. But because he wasn't there, of course, I couldn't do it. But it turned out better. So his granddaughter is the producer on the film, and she did a little talk back afterwards, and I listened to her, I listened to the director talk, and then as the show was letting out, she came up to me and she said, "Hey, I see you have a Rolleiflex." And I said, "Yeah, I wanted to photograph your grandfather." And she said, "Well, how about photograph me and send it to him? He'd love that. I bet he'll write you a thank you letter." And I said, "I would be glad to do that." So I took her out front of the theater. I photographed her with the theater and made 2 or 3 exposures and made a couple of exposures with her and the director. And came home, printed the photographs in my darkroom, put them in a frame, and sent them to her. And I felt like that was even more inspiring. Now I have a photograph in his home. Because a photograph of his granddaughter at a film festival with a film about him in a frame, there's no reason not to put that up. And it's a simple black frame and black metal frame that really showcases the black and white photograph. The photograph is signed on the mat. And it's a treat to be able to give that to him. And I sent it off to her. She lives in Los Angeles. He lives in Los Angeles. I sent it off to her right before this whole virus situation began. And so I don't know exactly if he got it yet. I don't know exactly what happened because once I sent it, I haven't heard anything. But it's just such a treat to be able to make photographs for people and to be able to make a photograph for him. If he were there, I may have photographed him and met him. But by him not being there, I ended up meeting somebody very important to him and creating a photograph that hopefully now will stay in his world and be a part of his home. And that's even a more special treat to me, especially because I got to make the photograph. And I hand printed the photograph. I made a few extra copies. I made some copies with the director and her, and I put them in the back of the frame. And someday when they open up the frame, they'll see there are extras. And the point of it is I got to make something that I didn't anticipate making. I was anticipating shooting nothing because he wasn't there, and it turned into a really special little project for me that I got to photograph her and send it off to her to get to him. So things work out different ways sometimes. It was certainly a highlight of my week to be able to make that photograph and make that print and shoot the Rolleiflex. It's such a wonderful camera to operate, to work, to shoot with, to create with. And then I won't put a link to that photo below because that photograph exists as a piece of film and a print. And I want it to exist that way. I don't want it to be online. If he chooses to put it online, that's one thing. If she chooses to put it online, that would be one thing. But I don't want to put it online because it's not, the gift was to create a piece of photographic art, to give them something that is theirs and to leave it there. If you want to experience it, go visit him in his home. That's what the point of that photograph was. And so I don't know if it'll end up showing up online down the road, but that wasn't my intention, and I won't put it online for that reason. So I can't show it to you. But I can show you some of his work, and I will put a link to his work in the show notes. All right, that's today's photography story. If you're enjoying these, hit the subscribe button. If you can support, hit the Patreon, and I will be back next week. We'll talk photography. As always, here's the good light.